Hey there folks. So in this video we're going to just take a little sidestep from our side scroller that we've been working on and look at how we would do all of these functionalities, the things like the notifies and the sockets and such, but using it for our little top-down character. And there's a lot of similarities, there's a lot of things we can just do, which is just let's add the notify into the particular animation, let's just add the socket to the particular point. But the thing we're looking at this one specifically for is the fact that here I've got all these different attack directions. Now, why does this work the way it does at the moment? Let's just quickly go through this top-down character to think about how they work. I've got some movement logic that allows me to go up, down, left and right. I've got the directionality, which is going to be our X and our Y inputs. And I've got the ability to flip over my character on the actor rotation. So that's what allows them to flip over. And you can see that I just have a debug arrow that I'd put in just to allow me to see which way the facing was. What is the predominant way that the actor itself is facing and not just the character. But now you can see that he idles in the different directions. He walks in the different directions. How does he do his attacks? Well, if we go and have a look at this attack logic, which is very much the same as we've already done, I check whether he's not already attacking and not dashing. There isn't a dash functionality here yet, but I put the boolean in just to start getting that set up. And if he isn't, I set him to be attacking, stop him moving, I allow him to jump to the specific anim instance, and then I set this up as a very simple countdown timer. Now, why do I use the jump rather than the override? Well, the reason for that is that jump allows me to go and jump to a particular animation point. So you can see here I've got a jump node, very similar to the way we've done things like jumping, falling and landing. But I jump to a very particular point in the animation blueprint and I play the animation effect. Well, why do I do that? Well, if I only played with an override, I'd have to pick a particular flipbook animation that I would want to play, or a source that I would want to play. So by doing it this way, what I'm just trying to do is showing you that you don't necessarily always have to override. What you could do is you could go into a particular point and then you could use determinations of these kind of transition rules to govern how you would go back. So you can see here, I could say if there is only so much of the animation attack left, so if less than 10% left, and same here, if there's less than 10% left, although this one could probably do with a if I'm also moving, go into there. And this allows me to play this animation, go back, but because my anim graph has the set directionality, that's what then overrides this to say it's using that direction, that direction, that direction, or that direction. And you can see I've got 4 different directional attacks for the top-down character, dependent on the direction that he is facing. Okay, so how do we take that now and start using that for what we want to do with our attacks? Well, one of the things I could do is go into my anim sequence. Probably want to go into the source to be able to see and view these. And let's go and have a look at our hunter's attack. Now, one of the things that you want to make sure that you have with this is that every single one of these animations here should have, hopefully, the same animation frames in terms of the quantity of them. Because what we're looking at saying is, if I add a notify, notice I'm not adding a notify for this direction, or this direction. I'm not specifically targeting, 0, 1, 2, and 3. I'm adding notifies for the whole animation. So if I were to just stop this looping and say, okay, well, actually, I want the animation to happen at this point here on frame 1, I want him to do his attack effect. Well, that means that that's attack effect going to happen for every single one of these. Yeah, which makes sense here because he's attacking down, here because he's attacking up. Does it make sense on this one? Maybe, but actually he's really attacking quite early on with this one. So what we'd end up with is he does the slash and does the damage a frame after. So this isn't, the smoothest and the nicest when it comes to meeting all these, but frame 1 does seem to be the best option for this. And if it was 0, we may as well just do the attack damage effect immediately, which doesn't really work on this one because at this point he hasn't swung his sword. Don't want to do damage to something that's in front of me when I haven't swung my sword yet. So how do we do this? Well, we've already seen. We add in a notify and we can use our primary attack notify that we've already done, and we can use this so that no matter what frame he's in with these, which direction he's in, that's when he's going to run that primary attack. Now I'm going to go back to my character. Notice that he's not going to have the interface section and the primary attack effect, so I'm going to have to go to class settings, implement the interface onto this character, just the same as I would with the side scroller one, and I'm going to implement the primary attack effect here. And we could very quickly just check that this is working with a print string. So we'll do primary attack effect. I want to see that printing out onto the screen. Does it work? There we go. Every single time I hit it, no matter what direction I'm going in, it's going to be printing out. Okay, well that's working. So let's do our debugs. So we'll do a draw debug sphere. Where do I want to do this? Let's do get actor location. And we're going to draw this little location. I'm going to make it quite small because I don't need it to be really over the top with this. I'm going to make it 0.2 because I know the cooldown on the attack is about 0.2 or 0.3 at the moment. And let's just test it out. There you go. So you can see at the attack point, that's when he does it. And you can see the side one is probably not the best. We might have to actually do some determination to say, you know, do we need to add in an extra frame on that one? Do we need to maybe add in another frame to all of them just so that they're slightly matching up and we do the damage at the same time? But at least they're all triggering that. So from the point of view of the notifies, that's the important thing. Making sure that obviously if I've got the directionality, I've set it up so that it now happens for every single one. The interface is being called because of our custom notifies, and that allows me to then do the damage in all the different directions. So what about the actual kind of getting the sockets and doing the damage? Well, I could come into here and I could use the socket. I could use that socket to maybe determine which direction this would attack from. So, you know, as we say, we should go sprites and attack. And I could maybe use the directional value to help me determine, maybe with a select node, which of these sockets we should use. So I could add in this one here, and I could add in a socket that says do the damage here. And I could have another one that obviously does the damage up above. And that would mean that, you know, when I'm coming into this character, maybe when I'm looking at this sprite and saying get socket, we could get socket location. Maybe it doesn't know which specific one it needs to do, so we could use a select node. Yeah, and we could say, which one of these names do I want to determine? This at the moment is wild, so maybe we take in our directional value and we can use that to determine whether we are going up, down, left and right. And we could use that to determine whether it uses up attack, left attack, right attack and so on. What about if we want to be a little bit more kind of mathy with that? What about if we want to find out a actor location, and also what about if we want to get an offset location? Because if we have a look at this one, we're not necessarily just always attacking from here and saying let's do damage. Maybe I want to do damage to everything that's in that kind of forward direction. So one of the things I'm going to show you now is how we can basically take our location, which could be replaced with a socket location, and add it to create a kind of offset location so that we do our effect in between 2 points. And we create, rather than just a sphere like a bubble, we create a kind of cylindrical kind of capsule tube that does our damage effect. Okay, so when we do our attack, what we're going to end up doing is probably using something like a multi-sphere trace or a sphere trace in order to find the things that we're hitting. So in this case, something like a multi-sphere trace for objects, you can see it has a start and it has an end. These are the 2 points, and we're going to do our radius check, which basically determines how wide that capsule is going to be. But if it was a spherical one, these 2 points would be exactly the same. That would work with what we're doing here, draw a debug sphere. But if this was a sphere and this was a sphere, but they were separated from each other, this will create the capsule going off away from us. Now, if I do draw debug and draw debug capsule, annoyingly we don't get to get the end of the capsule. We just have a center point, half height and radius, and it basically draws like a vertical capsule. This is great for thinking about, like, does my character fit? If I need to maybe pull this around and just draw what the central point is for the character's location, the half height and the radius, well, they just match our characters. We could do the rotation and we could rotate it round maybe to face in a direction, but we can't really go, let's go from one point to another. So what I would do instead, just to debug this and see whether this is working, let's draw a debug line, and we'll use this to basically go from one position to another and just see what that line looks like. Now, to keep this nice and easy, let's go with, just for now, a debug line that starts at our character's location. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a function that's going to allow me to find out what this line end is going to be. Because at the moment, if I was to actually do this, you can see that we're not going to actually see anything. we might just be able to see it. There we go. If we get far enough away from the central point, when I started my character was at 0, 0, 0, so you can see here, can't really see anything because we're on the 0, 0, but you can see every time I draw now, it draws a line from my character's location to that central point. Now, what we want to do is we want to obviously have that in front of our character. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a function, and this one is going to be find, we'll go with primary attack offset. And I'm going to use this to basically determine which direction this is going to go in. Now I need my directionality. This is going to obviously be which direction I'm going in. Sorry, I didn't need to do that one. So this is which direction I am currently moving in. It's not just necessarily the direction I'm moving in, because we could also do our get IA move, and we could use this to get the value of our movement, and that would tell us what our keys are. But basically this is being saved into this. So each of these work for what they are at the moment. And I'm going to break that to get the X direction and the Y direction. Now, this could be fine depending on which direction you are moving in and your animations. I have got a very simple kind of attack to the left and the right, but when I look to the up and the down, actually I've got a slightly larger attack. Now, that's because my character is obviously very vertical, very tall, and I might need to just do a little bit of extra catering in for the fact that my character looks tall when he's facing down. And what I might end up with is if I use the exact same value for both of these as the offset, it might feel like that my character is actually only attacking a very short distance from above and from below. So one of the things that I like to do just to give me that extra bit of control is just to make a vector 2D. Now, for now, I'm just going to make a vector 2D. I'm going to just plug this in, and I'm going to use this one to give me my offsets. If you don't like this, if it doesn't work for you, you can set them both to 1 for now just to test it out. If they work perfectly as 1 and 1, then yeah, just leave it. You don't need it. But I like to put these in, and then if these work, we can promote these to a variable or create ourselves an offset variable that we can use for our attack offset. So what am I going to do? Well, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take this X and I'm going to multiply it. So I'm going to take the X direction that we are currently pressing in, just going to align those, and I'm going to multiply it by the X multiplier that we're creating here. And you know what? I'm going to do the exact same, and I'm going to take the Y and I'm going to multiply it by the Y multiplier. So now what I've got is essentially this value, which is either -1 to 1, and it's being multiplied by whatever this is. So I can use this to say, okay, well, what if I wanted to make it a little bit bigger, a little bit smaller, a little bit, maybe it needs to flip over and be negative. So this could be -1s and 1s if it's going in the wrong direction. Or it could be that I'm trying to multiply this for a bigger distance, in which case these could be 1.5 or 2 or 2.5, just to get those little bit of extra range. Okay, so next thing that we're going to do here is we're going to create our attack location offset. So our attack location offset is going to be a variable, and I'm just going to create it here as a vector. And we could do this as a 2D, but I'll just do it as a vector just for now. And I'm just going to bring this in, and I'm going to, I could split it, or I could do what we're already doing here a lot, which is break it. Completely up to you. I like to do the breaks when I'm doing tutorials like this, just so that you guys, if you're following through the logic, you look for that node and then you break it, rather than looking for a node that has 3 outputs called attack location offset that you have no idea what that is doing. Now, this is going to be where we can obviously come in here and add in some offset values for how far away we want this attack to happen. So for now, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put in 50 and 50, and that's just going to work for my left and right and my up and down. Again, these are values that you can tweak to make this offset further ahead, further behind, and so on. And what we're going to do is we're going to take these values and we're going to use those as a multiplier as well. Again, this is just so I can do that 1 and -1 and slight little multipliers. And this is my kind of my default offset that we're going to work with. So let's add in 2 more multipliers. I'm just going to take those ones we've already got. So I'm going to take this X value and multiply it by this X value. I'm going to take this Y value and multiply it by that Y value. And this is why we could just make this another vector 2D, because we don't really need the Z. And these, we're going to combine these all back together. So we'll make a vector. And again, this could just be a vector 2D because we only need the X and Y. And I'm just going to combine those things together to say, okay, well, this is what's going to happen. We're going to take this modified and multiplied X value. And then we're going to take this and we're going to obviously need to use this value, this offset value, as an offset from where we currently are. So what we could do here is just get our actor's location, and this is our start point, and this is going to be our end point. So to do that, we're just going to add these two vectors together. So it'll take where we are, and it'll add this one onto that. So this now gives me a start location, and the bit that comes out of the end of here, this bit, this is our offset end point. So what we can do is we can say, well, actually, we want to not just call and tell this all to happen, because all this is doing is at the moment is just modifying values and doing some math for us. What I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to add an offset. And this offset is going to be the start lock, which is going to be a vector. And we're also going to have our offset lock. And again, that's just going to be a vector. So you can see we can come in and use all this math to determine where do we start? Well, that's our character's location. And where do we end? Well, that's going to be modified by all of these. And now if I go back into here, rather than just using our character's actor location here, we could use this find primary attack offset, and we could use that to basically feed us some values. Now I could make this a pure function just to get the logic we need. But for now, let's put this in as maybe a really bright color. Orange will probably be very visible. Let's go with it having much bigger thickness and just make it appear just slightly long enough. And let's test that and see how that works. Okay, so there you can see when I'm attacking, there is a little bit of an offset, but you can see it's going in the wrong direction for our Y, and that's why I added in that small little modifier. So if I go into here and just go into this one for our Y, maybe you've not got this. Maybe you've got your game, if you think about it, like I've got Y as down here. So if you've got it flipped this way and everything's working perfectly that way, then you won't have this option. But if you are finding that it's flipped over, you can just use this as a little simple kind of flipper just to flip it over this way. So there's up, down, right, and left. And what else can we use these for? Well, we could use these, as I said, for little bits of multipliers as well. So this allows me to basically extend out the length of the line. So you can see that's now a much longer line. And I'm trying to basically get this to match up with the animation that I'm doing. So you can see that one there, because it's going from the middle of my character, I'm losing half of the character, half of the distance because of the length of my character's body. Same here, if it's coming from the middle of my character, I'm losing a whole bunch of it because of the actual height of my character, whereas here I'm much thinner. So actually I'm hitting things that are much closer to me. So we're just using that as a little modifier to push this up and away in different directions. Now, what I'm actually going to use that for, in a future video, we'll look at how we're going to do our actual attack effects. But for now, just to show you, we're going to go with a sphere trace and we'll go for objects. And we'll just make this visible for one frame. We'll make an array, and we're going to be, let's say we're looking for our world dynamic and pawn, because that will be any interactive elements in the level blueprints and also any kind of other characters. And we'll use these to determine our start and end point. The radius, this will be a value I might want to promote. So this will be our attack radius. And what would be in a good attack radius for this? Maybe we try 50 just to see how large that makes this capsule. And I just want to obviously debug and draw this for one frame just to see what this is going to look like. And you can see now, as I draw, there you go. You can see different attacks in different directions. We'll draw that capsule out. Now that's not really showing for long enough, so let's go and put this for duration. And what we should now see is that this allows me to attack in all the different directions. In fact, it also works for directionality. So what you might need to actually end up doing is just saying, okay, well, if I'm only pressing one of the keys to use that one, or I might have a key that overrides the other one, and you can use those modifiers to obviously multiply this and make it have a longer reach for the attack. But this allows me now to use everything we've done so far in terms of the notifiers to determine which direction my attack is going to go in. Now that starting location bit, obviously I've just said use it from the middle of my character, but feel free, rather than using it from the middle of the character, feel free to use a socket here. And you could determine what socket we're going to use by actually getting from the sprite, getting the socket location and adding this on top of that. Or you could just use the socket location and use that as our one starting point. But this allows me at least to obviously have my different attacks, different directions and things being taken into account, so I can have different effects whether it's left, right, up or down. Thanks for watching, folks. If you enjoyed this video, then please consider subscribing to access more of my Unreal Engine content.